I was being escorted into a confinement cell in my second bid, on my third bid, and I didn't do anything. They just came and got my stuff. They took me to the captain and said, we're putting you in confinement. I said, for what? He said, we don't have to tell you. I said, I'm obviously being escorted there for some reason. You got to give me the reason. He said, we don't have to tell you. Take him away. So now they're escorting me into this confinement cell, and I said to myself, because I already screwed up the last 2 times. I ended up doing all of my time instead of getting out on good behavior. You know, the first time I didn't care. The second time I really tried, but I screwed it up. The third time I'm like, I really want to get home early, right? Like I want to do right by my family. And here I am being escorted into this cell. And Tony Robbins talks about a primary question. And my primary question at this age, I'm probably about 25, 26 years old, was how can I find meaning in this? This is a question that is like a servile missile. Your RAS, which is your reticular activating system, is going to be honed in on what is going to provide you something that is relative to what your thought process is. And as I'm being escorted into this room, I'm saying, how can I find meaning in this? Because I didn't really do what they think I did. I don't even know what they think I did. But now I've got to put my hands through the flap. They got to take the handcuffs. And I'm sitting in the cell all by myself. Nothing, just a mat, the sink and the toilet. And I said, boom.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Flippin' Soul Flow, where we talk to entrepreneurs, house flippers, anybody who's actually accomplished something in business, been through adversity, etc., and what it actually takes to get to where they are now and all the BS that they had to go through to be an overnight success, you know, multiple years later. So today we have a really old, good friend of mine, Jake Cortez is what he goes by now. It used to be Jake Peñaranda back in the day when I knew him before he was famous. Jake, thank you for being here and thank you for taking the time, dude.
Absolutely. This is going to be a really cool podcast, man.
Yeah. I'm excited because me and Jake go way back. Just to kind of give you a brief synopsis for the listeners and the viewers. When I got fired from Merrill Lynch, Jake and I met, I don't know, it's 8 years ago now. At Raw Spinning Sushi. You remember that? In Boca. And he was talking next to me, you know, with his then girlfriend, and we were talking, whatever. We heard each other's accent. We're like, are you from Miami? Yeah, I am. Oh, you too, whatever. That conversation started. I was at a low point in my life, and we'll get to Jake's story now, but it was pivotal for me because that turned into a friendship, which eventually Jake ended up telling me, hey, I'm bringing you with me to Tony Robbins, a business mastery event that he was hosting in West Palm Beach. That event, first of all, I didn't really know who the hell Tony Robbins was at the time. I was like 24, maybe 25. And I was just about to start my real estate journey. I didn't know that at the time either, but I got to go. He was a platinum partner membership in his mastermind at the time. I got to sit first row, so I always appreciate him for that. And dude, I learned so much. I actually got to meet Tony, which was awesome. I shared like 30 seconds of words with him. And dude, like Jake introduced me to that. And Jake really exposed me, you know, my mind to something completely different. And dude, from there, I mean, we became really good friends. And, you know, Jake's had an amazing story. We'll get into the details, but Jake, in my opinion, for people that I know, you want to talk about a comeback story or a bounce back story, I'd be hard pressed to say that you're going to hear a better comeback story than the one you're about to hear right now on this podcast. Jake, I'm just going to kick it right off. So Jake, like most of us, right, made a couple mistakes. He ended up being incarcerated, right, for an extended period of time. Different time in his life, obviously. He made a mistake like any of us can. He served out his sentence, and in prison, he found how to make a better use of his time, for lack of a better expression, and he didn't just waste it. And he bounced out. He, you know, he'll tell his story, right? But now he owns one of the top developments for a mobile home park in Panama City Beach, Florida. Second largest mobile home park in Florida, correct?
Yep, second largest.
Yeah, probably top 10 in the country. And that one I'm just making up, but I'm just going to give it to you because you guys are developing 3,000 pads. Is that right?
3,500.
3,500. Look at that. I shaved off 500 pads. Jake, dude, I'll let you take it away. Just tell the people what got you there? I mean, being incarcerated, that's no easy thing. I mean, that's definitely a low point. You and I know each other off camera, obviously, very well. But just tell the people, what happened. I mean, you ended up there, and you went through a lot of stuff and a lot of life changes, right? But just kind of tell the people what how that experience was.
So I will start off by like my earliest like I had a very blessed, let's say, childhood and welcoming into this world. It was my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my great great grandmother. So four generations of strong Cuban women. And there was so much love, 0 to 7, amazing years growing up in Lancaster, California, riding bikes with the neighborhood kids, rock fights, climbing mountains, chasing lizards, chasing snakes, and all these fun young boy stuff. Now, fast forward to when I was 11 years old, I was always a mischievous child, but I always had my father's, authoritative presence. My mom, she was always kind of more gentle with me, and she was a little overbearing because she wanted to protect her, and I'm the eldest. She wanted to protect her children, which is totally understandable. But at 11 years old, I had a conversation with my father that he basically said, "Hey, Jake, look, it's not working out, me and your mom. We're going separate ways, and you're now the man of the house." Now, at 11 years old, um, your mind is really not formed yet. And my dad was like my superhero. And here's a moment where my dad is doing what he thought was best in the moment, but it was very challenging for me as an 11-year-old boy to like hear that and understand it. And he left the next day. So here I am. I have these questions because I don't know what it means to be the man of the house. And I don't have anybody to get the answers from because now it's my mom and I'm pissed. So confusion went to anger, anger went to resentment, which then led to hatred. And and between 11 and 22, I got into enough trouble to send me to prison 3 times. Not one time, not 2 times, 3 times. So I went in when I was 18, I got out when I was 20. I went back when I was like 21, from 21 to 22, and then I'm 24, 25 years old, I'm on my way back for the third time. So here I am, 18 years old. I've already been in 2 rehabs, been in jail more than 10 times. Um, First prison bid, second prison bid, and now 25 years old. I'm saying to myself, yo, this life can't be like this. Like this is not what you want for your life. If anybody would hurt your mom, you'd hurt them, and here you are hurting your mother the most. So in hindsight, I am exceptionally happy and grateful for the path that I had, because what are men's rite of passage? Young boys growing into men, what is their rite of passage today? You're playing video games one day, and then next you're working at Wendy's. It doesn't feel like a transition that like grips a man and like forces him to figure things out and be responsible and learn. So in that moment, I felt that my father betrayed me. He betrayed the family. And that cut so deep within that my mom really couldn't help with that because she was my mother and I had to kind of be the provider, the protector. My brothers, I'm the oldest. My sister, I'm the oldest. I'm not going to my friends. That's not cool. So my father was like a traditional macho Cuban guy. Rocky's on. We're watching Rocky. He's loving it. And then next thing you know, me and my two brothers are over the sink and we're eating raw eggs, just like in the movies. And then we got boxing gloves on, and it's me and my brother. I'm 4, he's 3, and we're just like duking it out in the living room. And this was my father's way of like teaching his boys to be men. So there was social reinforcement around physical aggression. So when dad's not there, it was a cathartic release for me to fight somebody who's disrespecting me. It's like, oh, this person is belittling me. And what I believed manhood to be is making sure that you were respected. And then, but having that mentality in prison is it's not the best, but it helps you there. But then it's like, I had this moment when I'm 22 years old and I'm sitting in a confinement cell after a fight. And I've already fought so many times on my first bid was the worst. because I fought so many times, and I spent a whole year in confinement on that bit.
Wow.
So we'll get to that one later. But that was a very transformational experience, especially being that I was in a youthful offender camp, but then I violently assaulted another inmate, like really bad. Like he went to the hospital. Like it was bad. Like I committed, and I'm not glorifying this, but I'm sharing my experience that I committed to making this person never forget me for what they did. Like I wanted to make, but fast forward, here I am going through this stuff and fighting all the time. And then I'm sitting in this prison cell and I'm saying, how many of these people do I have to fight? And why do I want their respect? Will I ever see them again? And then the final question that basically dove me deep. There was enough pain, there was enough leverage for me to ask a question that started to shift the trajectory of my life. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be? Because I'm fighting right now to own the manhood that what I believe manhood to be about is fighting for it, making sure people respect you. And what I realized is I was being a little bitch. I was fighting and I was winning these fights. Maybe I lost a few, but in prison, you have to fight, and you don't have to win the fight, but you have to participate.
Yeah.
Because
it's a contact sport.
If you don't, you are going to have some of the biggest, ugliest problems you have ever encountered in your life. We'll leave it there. All you've seen in the movies is true.
All you little punk ass kids watching out there that you think you're tough, because I used to think I was tough too. Don't end up mistaking tough for a situation like that and thinking you're some big macho dude, because that's again, I know Jake very, very well, but that's about as bad as it could get. Would you agree? Like in that moment.
Brother, I have moments where this might be it. This might be it.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to be ready to say, you know what? Fuck it. If I'm going to die now, I'm going, but I'm going because it's better to fight on your feet than die on your knees. So like there's a lot that I was able to pull from a very young age, because it wasn't like, do I have a choice to fight? There was no choice. This is like, I have to.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was mandatory, because if somebody, I'll give you an example. If somebody comes and they try to take something from you and you just give it to them so they leave you alone, that is the worst thing that you could potentially do, because they're going to come back, and they're going to come back heavy, and they're going to take more than just your honey buns and your chips and your cigarettes. That's a very sad situation for some people. Thankfully, like I grew up fighting, and I can fight pretty well. I mean, thankfully, I haven't had to fight in a long time, which I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
But the thing I want to talk about here, because you and I share this, and this is why I thought that this would be really cool, is anger. The face of anger being fuel. Like my father, he had to prove something to his father. And he spent a considerable amount of time proving stuff to his father that he can make it out on his own. I never had to prove anything to my father in that regard, but my proving to my father was, your choice to leave the family shouldn't give you any right to really even care about me or really want to be in my life as a son, because I don't have anything to prove to you. I'm just going to live my life. And at that point, I had obviously fucked it up pretty bad, and I had some words with my father. He came to visit me, and it was just like, look, you had to prove things to your father. I want you to know I had nothing to prove to you. And apparently I'm not doing a good job of proving anything. I'm sitting here in prison, but the anger was there, and it was palpable, and it was fuel, and you had the same fuel. So I want to talk about the corrosive effects of hatred and resentment, because, and I said this in my TEDx talk, hatred and resentment were the foundations of the cell that incarcerated my soul long before I was in prison. Because here I am doing the drugs. I'm having like crazy orgies. I'm like living up the Miami party life better than everyone back when it used to be fun, right? Because it changed and it's whack now. But like back
It's
then,
weird.
it's got real weird. Like after hours used to be on the beach. A lot of people don't know this, but Club Space used to be on South Beach on Washington Avenue. And then when the party ends after hours, we take it, Sunday, all Sunday, and just keep going till Monday. But what I realized in hindsight, I had a little time to think about this, 7.5 years.
You had some thinking time for a little bit.
A little contemplation time, right? You're spending a considerable amount of time on my sentence in confinement. I had plenty of time to think.
To anybody watching, like I don't want to get too far into the rabbit hole, but you bring up a really good point. Obviously, you did have a lot of time, right? And that's something that I love that point because it's very universal, right? The one thing that Jeff Bezos, down to the janitor, to us, to any other man or woman who's ever walked this earth, we all have the same amount of time. Now, we all get different times in like, hey, some guys die at 20 years old. Some people live to 100 and something. But in a day, when you are here, you do get the same amount of time. So It's interesting. When you're in prison, obviously, as you and I have had conversations about this at length, you do have a long stretch of time where you're like, well, I don't have all these pleasures. I don't have distractions. So you have a lot of introspection, I would imagine. And you've told me this. What did you do with that time? Because a lot of people piss it away, but some people like you clearly focus on, okay, one day I am going to get out of here. What am I going to do then?
So I was 18 years old, and every charge that I had before 18 years old, I would dress very well, I'd speak very well, and they would let me go. Like the worst I got was a rehab. So I would always dodge the bullet pre-18, and I had some pretty strong charges. I had strong armed robbery, I had possession of coke with intent to sell, I had just multiple fights, and I would always dodge the bullet. Now at 18 years old, and now I will say 16 turning 17, a lot of 17, I had this impending thought. Jake, your life is kind of spinning out of control, and there's only two options really. Like you're going to end up in prison or the Marines, possibly dead. And I went to go see a Marine recruiter, and they were like, look, you've got this criminal thing here, probation, whatever, you need to clear this up, come see us. 6 months into my 18th birthday, I'm sitting in jail, Dade County Jail. I don't recommend that to anyone. Like that place sucks really bad.
What is that, TGK?
No, Dade County Jail right there in downtown.
Oh, like, that ugly ass building that's there.
It's been there since like the 50s, bro. And then the air circulating in the building, I think is just the same air from the 50s. It smells like
they encapsulated the 1950s air and they just pump it
bro,
back in.
like it's the same, like you just feel the dense energy. And the funny part is, when I was 16 years old, going to Hammocks Middle School, I was in SARP, Student at Risk program, and they took me to Dade County Jail, and they took me to the 9th floor, and they got the meanest looking inmates to come talk to us aggressively, to scare us straight. And I was like, man, this guy is crazy. A Hispanic guy with fangs. And it just, the air stunk. It was bad. And then 2 years later, I'm sitting on the same floor.
Oh my God.
And I was offered 2 years on house arrest and 1 year probation. No. 1 year on house arrest, 2 years probation for that charge. 1 year on house arrest, 2 years probation. And I knew myself. It's like, here it is. Here is the opportunity for you to try and dodge this bullet, right? Like this is going to be kind of light. You haven't really felt the pain. You haven't felt the sting of your stupidity. And I told my attorney, I don't want it. I told my attorney, I don't want it. I want time. Give me time, straight time, and when I'm done, I'm out. But I don't want halfway out. I don't want to go see a probation officer. I knew myself. My homeboys would come to my house, and then we'd hang out, and then they'd go out and party. And there'd be that one night where I say, you know what? Fuck this thing on my ankle, right? Like I would just buck the system and deal with it. But I don't have that option because I said, you know what? You've been dodging that bullet. I picked the hard thing. Sometimes the easy thing is not going to get you where you need to be. And I picked the hard thing. And guess what? Now I'm on my way to prison because.
For how long?
So 2 years.
2 years mandatory or like early release or what?
So I could have gotten out in probably like 22 months instead of 24. But in good time, like I already had, like just getting to the reception center in South Florida from Dade County Jail, I fought there. Like luckily, nobody caught us. We're good. But within 2 weeks of getting shipped to the next institution, I'm fighting there. You know, like, and this was a recurring theme because I look American. I don't like give off the energy of being a loud, boisterous Cuban. Like it's just, yeah. So I wasn't raised like that. Like I grew up in Texas and California, and I don't give off that energy.
Yeah.
Being American in Florida prison, you are the minority. And, you know, I had to fight a lot of people.
Were these fights that you're looking for, or were these a lot of fights like, this guy tried me, so I'm going?
Well, both times I was tried. Like between the South Florida Reception Center and 2 weeks into the new institution, you know, one guy, he grilled me because his roommate is fighting my roommate. And Alejandro, I'll never forget him, Himawa, they called him because he had a twin. And Himawa was like, he'd ride or die with you. Like if you're gonna go, he'd ride or die with you. And I had a couple of friends in there like that. The sad part is he would stand up to anyone, but he couldn't fight for shit. I felt
this poor guy.
We used to play fight in the cell, and you know, and then he'd end up in the corner like crouched up, and his defense mechanism was to fart. And it was just
what the fuck?
It was crazy. And you know, and I love the guy because he was down for whatever. But now he's fighting in this room. They're locked in there. This guy's fighting this guy's roommate, younger black guy, black gold teeth, tattoos everywhere. And he just walks by and he just grills the shit out of me, just like with his gold teeth. And so I didn't let that go. Like I told this other Hispanic guy, Scarface, they call him Scarface. I don't know where this guy is anymore. I don't know where any of these people are. But I was like, Scarface, I got a plan, and you're going to be a part of the plan, okay? Everybody's basically gone out to recreation except this guy who grilled me, and I'm going to go up there and fight him. But I need you to go up there and stick your foot in the door, because when the doors lock, they lock. The only way to open is the officer. So he's like, all right, I got you. And so I go up to this cell, and I know that he didn't leave, but he's not in his cell. And then I hear the shower next door. So I was like, all right. So we walk back down. Now I'm back at the staircase, and he walks out of the shower. He sees me. I see him. He looks at me. I look at him. And then I go up the stairs. I took off my shirt. I threw it on the bunk, and he was going in his locker. The lockers are on the ground. And I just swung. And now we're fighting. We're just going at it. And I did get the better of that guy, you know, and it got to a point where he's like, all right, Chico, you got that. All right, Chico, you got that. Because they call Hispanic people Chico because they hear each other. We call each other Chico. He's like, all right, Chico, you got that. Then I get my stuff and I leave, and I said, look, it didn't have to be all of that. But I left, and now I'm on the rec field, and it's me and Alejandro and Scarface. So we got like 3 people there, and now I see them clicking up.
Oh,
so
boy.
It's like 5 of them, 6. And then I was like, Alejandro, you better like break a piece of the fence off quick. So he's like sitting down. He's trying to rip a piece of the fence off. And now there's like 5 of them. It's just us 3. And the The thing about this is a youthful offender at camp. So you're only 16 to 24 years old in this part of the institution.
That's wild, bro.
So it's only young people. And the thing about this, it doesn't matter if you're black, Hispanic, white. If you're from Miami, Miami clicks up. If you're from Fort Lauderdale clicks up. If you're from Orlando, Orlando clicks up. So Miami has a pretty big people like group. And when all of the rec field saw that these people were coming, then just more people came on our side. And then you had like the ringleader was not the guy that I fought, some other guy with gold teeth. He's like, why'd you stole my dog? Like, why'd you steal my dog? Like basically saying, why'd you stole him? Like, and I was like, he knows why I hit him. Like he knows. And so we had some words and then they just broke off. Now, South Florida Reception Center is just a transitory camp before they send you to your main camp. So now I get to my main camp and this is run like the military. You get up at 5 a.m, you're PTing by 5:30. You know, like when I got off the bus, I've never seen this in my life, but I saw black people speaking like rednecks. And I've never seen that in my life. And I thought that I was in Alabama or something because I was in a bus with no window. So I didn't know where the hell I was.
Oh my God.
In Lancaster, which is in Trenton, Florida. Have you ever heard of Trenton?
No.
Me neither. Until I arrived there. And it's early in the morning, you smell cow shit, and you're PTing, and it was just like a surreal.
It's like a shocker.
This is my life now. Like you're
getting and you know you're gonna be there for 2 years.
2 years.
And this is the first day, and you're like, I don't know where the hell I am. There's blacked out windows, there's cow shit, there's black people, white people, Hispanic people, all types of people.
All types of people.
And this is my life.
This is my life now. This is when you have the moment like, this is my life now. You know, if it's a nightmare, I'd like to wake up now type moment. But, you know, like, but from the moment you get off the bus, you have some big redneck just like, ah, and he's yelling, and the last person off the bus is going to get a swift kick in the ass, and they don't even care, bro. Like they're kicking people, throwing people, and now you get off the bus and you have, just like you see in the military, they're yelling intelligible shit, but every now and then you catch, get on the floor and give me 50 push-ups. And you got to do the push-up. And now it's jumping jacks and you don't even know what next. And you're just like, and you already took a long bus ride. You're a little tired, but it doesn't matter. Your adrenaline's pumping. You don't even know what's going on. And then you get to your dorm and it's like remedial dorm for like 2 weeks. You're in this dorm before they let you on the compound. So now when you're eating at the chow hall, you got to kind of eat quick because when they call your row of tables, you got to, whether you're finished with your food or not, you got to take your tray and you got to throw it away. So I learned very quick to eat all the food I cannot put in my pockets first. Because there were 2 guys who didn't get up when the officer told them to get up, and the sergeant just walked by, just grabbed him by the shirt collar and threw him on the ground. Threw him on the ground like that. And I was
so
like,
is this like you made the choice 1 year, you knew it, you're like, I want the hard road, like you just said, right? Which is very similar to entrepreneurship, and we're going to tie this in here, but yeah. I don't want to spend the whole podcast on the prison because Jake has so much more to offer, and like the comeback story is badass. But in this moment, you're like, holy shit, I may have made the wrong choice here. You're like, uh-oh, this is a lot more than what I bargained for.
I never really had that.
Or you liked it. Like you were like, all right, this is it. I'm ready for it.
I knew that the alternative was far worse.
Yeah.
I would have ended up still on drugs. I would have ended up just wasting my life away. But I will tell you that I decided that I wanted to leave that institution, but I wasn't going to escape. So I was committed to leaving that institution. So my first shot at leaving that institution was faking suicide. But in order for me to do that, I had to cut myself. And I really didn't want to kill myself. So you remember Alejandro from the other institution, Himawa? So he's there with me. And I'm like, yo, I need you to do me a favor. He's like, yeah, what? He said, I said, I need you to like pull the skin right here. Just hold it. And he's like, all right, I got you. So he's pulling and I pull out a blade. And he's like, no, hey, what are you doing, bro? I'm like, all right, look, you are fired from this plan. Like, you're just totally fired. But let me just give you an idea of what you need to do now. Okay. Because at this point, Willie, I'm committed. I'm committed. I already learned from somebody else. This is the way to get out of here. Because in my mind, I think that there's a better place. You know, I'm still going to be locked up, but I'm going somewhere else. And he's like, huh? I said, look, when I tell you, you just go to the officer station, tell them your friend's trying to kill himself. So I pulled up to the back. This is open bay dorm. There's 60 bunks around here, dual bunks, right? But there's only probably like 60 people in there. And I'm up against the wall and I start doing this. But mind you, this is a razor to shave your face. And the way that I went taking the razor out, I just stomped it with my boot and I took the razor out. Yeah. So it's probably a little dull because I've shaved my face with it. But now I see like a little bit of blood and I tell him, go. So he goes to the officer station. And then I realize by the time he's like there and he's like knocking on the window, I look at this and I'm like, bro, this is not believable. It looks like I was fucking wrestling a kitten. Like, this guy's not. So now he's coming and now I'm like really like, and then he's towering over me and he's like, inmate Panorama, drop the fucking razor. And I'm in this moment, everything is weighed based off how a crazy person would respond. So I didn't drop the razor. And I'm like, inmate. And he says it again. And then I drop it. And it's so quiet in this storm that you hear the little razor go. He grabs me by my shirt and pulls me. And now he's taking me to the officer station. They put me in handcuffs. And they said, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I said, sir, my uncle died. I don't want to live anymore. So they take me to the infirmary. They take all my clothes and they put me in this little room that they can see through the window. So there's nothing in this room. It's all green. This room is all green with a green mat, with a green roof, with a toilet and a sink, not even toilet paper. If I want toilet paper, I have to knock on the window and they give me toilet paper. So now here I'm entering this room and I'm like, all right, we're doing this. And they took all my clothes. So all I have is a shroud, bro. No showering, no nothing, just a shroud. I'm not going to leave this room for nothing until they're doing what they're doing. So every morning they pop the flap. And they're like, so how you feeling today? And I was like, no, same. I'll kill myself if you guys let me out of the compound. So by the third day, I'm in here. I've already counted all the holes in the vent. I've counted all the holes in the window. I've thought about all the women that I've slept with, some with condoms, some without. I've thought about everything I could possibly think about for this nothing. You have no books. You have nothing. It's just a room. You know, and if you Google anybody who's in like solitary confinement for 3 or more days could have psychological damage for the rest of their life. This is what they say. And I'm in this room and I thought about everything I could potentially think of. And the one thing that I didn't think about that really pissed me off when I figured it out is that suicidal people don't eat. And I've been eating every meal that they put through that door. And I was like, I'm not eating on this day. So now they put in breakfast. I eat a biscuit and milk, put it out. Put in lunch. I push it out untouched because now I realize they open those things and they notate everything that's been eaten.
Of course.
And then dinner comes. By now, I'm so starving that if this tray comes in this room, I'm going to eat it. So I put my hands on the flap and I say, I don't want it. I didn't even let it in the room. Now, here is the beauty in this story that I'm telling you, that humanity was brought to a place where I had no prior experience of being treated like a human by officers or staff while in a correctional institution. You're treated like an animal. They're totally disconnected from treating you like a human. And the flap pops, and it's not in the morning. Because the only other time that flap would pop to have a conversation with me is in the morning when the psychological guy, the psych guy comes and does an evaluation. And this older lady just kind of like puts her head to the flap and she just said, what's wrong, young man? I said, my uncle died and I don't want to live anymore. And she she said something that was a chink in my armor. Here I am, I got no clothes, I got a shroud over me. And she said, young man, what would your mom say if she saw you like this?
Oh,
Bro, there went Hollywood. Like, apple in my throat. She said, why don't you just eat this food? I'll heat it up for you. And I had a moment of clarity, right? Because I'm fighting. I'm fighting all the way through this. I want out of this place. I want to go somewhere else. And I'm fighting me. And here you have somebody that's just had enough humanity to treat me like a human. Although I was battling my demons. And she heated up the food and she gave it to me. And I devoured it, bro. And the next morning, the psych doctor comes and he's like, so what happened? What would happen if we let you out on the compound? He said, you know what, doc? I'm having a change of heart. I ended up being shipped from that institution and I got what I wanted because I wanted to leave there. But how I left, I had the moment as going from a youthful offender camp to an adult prison, but not just an adult prison, where they put all of the bad adults within the prison system. They're shit. So as you know, I'm 165 pounds soaking wet. I've just been reclassified as an adult because, you know, I got into a very violent altercation with another inmate. I sent him to the hospital. And now as I'm walking into this dorm, I got shackles on my feet. I've got a belly chain and then a chain that runs from the handcuffs to the ankles. And as I'm walking into this dorm, you can just hear the chain just dragging on the floor. And now you have guys in the windows of these confinement cells catcalling me like I'm Beyonce.
oh my God.
I'm 165 pounds soaking wet, right? I'm 18.
And these are grown men.
Grown men.
Like, and some of these guys, I assume, have been there for quite a while.
Yeah, bro. And I had the moment where, I got that moment in my head where it's like, so you wanted to leave that place, huh? You wanted to leave by all means necessary, huh? You got what you wanted. You're here. Are you happy? Are you, and they put me in the cell and they took the shackles and everything off and they leave me in there and I'm in a daze because I really haven't slept much in 5 days because I've been in transit, haven't showered in 5 days. There's no central AC in prisons. You just got like an HVAC that pulls air through everything. And I go like this and just the dirt comes off of me because no shower in 5 days. And I'm sitting on this bunk and I'm in like a daze. And I hear 207, 207, I'm coming for that ass. You know, I wasn't paying attention at first. And then I go up and I go to the window and I see like 201s right there, 202, 203, 204. Then there's the corner, which is like 206, which means like I'm in 207. And then I'm thinking, I don't even know how this works. This is a new institution. But I know one thing. The only way somebody comes in this room is in handcuffs. And the only way you get out of handcuffs is you got to put your hands out the door and they uncuff you. That I know. So anybody who comes in here, if they look a little shady, I'm just going to have to kick them in the face and maybe well, I'm already in confinement. But you know what I did in that moment? I started doing jumping jacks. Sweaty, stinky, haven't slept. Jumping jacks, push-ups. From push-ups to jumping jacks. Push-ups, jumping jacks, dips, and just started, I said, over my dead body, will I not be quick enough? Will I not have the strength to deal with whatever comes at me? Because you did what you just did, which I hit an inmate with a lock. That's how I got there. So they put me in what's called closed management 2. The worst is closed management 1, where you're in confinement for a year by yourself. I'm in closed management 2, which means I can have a roommate, but you're 24 hours, 7 days a week, locked in that room, and they feed you through a flap in the door 3 times a day, and you only get 3 showers a week. That's the only time you come out of the cell. So when you're talking about time, we have 24 hours in a day. In that moment, that situation wasn't going to break me because everything in prison is made around breaking the human spirit. So I said, they can have my body because they have that. They can fuck with my mind, and that's possible. But you can't touch my spirit. You can't touch my spirit. But under no circumstances will I not be prepared in the event that I would have to go toe-to-toe with somebody for 3 to 5 minutes. You better have gas in the tank, because this ain't, you know, it's just, it could be from bad to worse. And we could have stories for days, but I want to say that being in that situation for a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I created a routine for myself. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would do 500 jumping jacks, 100 a set. I would do anywhere from 250 to 500 push-ups. I would do 250 dips every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'm doing this while my cellmate is just laying in bed. He's either on the top bunk or the bottom bunk, but you have a cellmate and they're right there. You got to piss and shit right in front of this person. So that's it. Your toilet's right here. Just everything in front of them. So now I say all of that to say I had, based off my ill-conceived decisions, it wasn't the drugs, it wasn't my mom, it wasn't my dad, it wasn't the system. It was you, idiot, for making these stupid decisions. What are you doing? Are you a masochist? Why do you keep ending up in this shit? Especially at the 3rd time, I was like, dude, are you a masochist? Why? And I had to pull back the layers of the onion, the hatred, the resentment, the areas where I was blaming my father, to had to take 100% ownership for my situation. And it wasn't until then that I started to pull the pieces together of how I ended up there. But I created other rules for myself. I would never read fiction books. I was not going to put pictures on the wall. This is not my home. Other guys will put pictures and kind of get a little, like, I don't want this to be comfortable at all. You know?
So you did this, obviously you did this conscientiously. Like you were like, this is not my home. This is not permanent. I don't want it to sink into my subconscious. I'm getting out, and everything I'm going to do is a representation of there's going to be a life outside of here, whenever that is, but there's going to be a life. This is more entrepreneurship, lifestyle, mindset, big time. And how now we're going to get into the happier days of Jake's comeback, right? He's many, many, many years removed from that. But there's a moment, and I know this because, you know, we've been good friends for a long time, but there's a moment where you find Tony Robbins in this prison. There's that's really like oh, here we go.
I'm 26 years old, and I'm trading a pack of cigarettes for a book. And cigarettes are currency, that and chips, but cigarettes, people will give you any food, whatever. So I never used to smoke ever, but I would always have cigarettes. And I'm trading this pack of cigarettes for this book, Awakening the Giant Within.
It's a great book.
And you got Tony's big face on the book, you know, and I've got this voracious hunger for something other than this shit that I've created for myself. Because, you know, it's like, and I had so much leverage to do things that are not easy for people, like reading, writing, studying, because the alternative was far worse than any pain I would encounter by just studying and doing these things. Like, oh, I'm gonna do this. For me, it was just like, you don't have a choice. Look what you've done with your life. I became a self-help junkie. I was an addict before then. I transitioned to self-help junkie. And I'm reading Awakening the Giant Within. And there was an exercise where I write down my contribution goals, my toys and adventure goals, my business goals, my relationship goals. And I wrote in there, master the art of public speaking. Okay?
That's interesting.
Master the art of public speaking.
Where'd that come from?
Because I genuinely wanted to master the art of public speaking. I've always been in sales, but I wanted to be able to have a conversation one to many just like you and I are having this conversation, and feel comfortable doing it. So I wrote that down, master the art of posing, join Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership. And now I get shipped from one institution to the next, which is kind of like a halfway house work release in Pompano. It's between commercial and I forget what it is. But in this work release center, there was a guy named Lance who wrote a letter to Toastmasters and said, we'd like to open a chapter in this work release center. They agreed. The chapter started there. Now I'm sitting in this room of 30 people that would like to enhance their ability to communicate in public. And I'm the first one that they call in that chapter. Jacob, to the podium, you're going to speak on the use of the bayonet in the Civil War. Go. I'm at the podium. Bayonets, long rifle with a knife. You run out of bullets, you can throw it like a spear, but if you do that, you might have bigger problems on your hand if your enemies still have ammunition. And the whole thing is, I am living in the moment what I had created a year prior, and I had no concept of it being in an institution. So now I learned the ability to suspend any thought or logic you might have around what you are wanting to manifest, how that will come about. Suspend how you think or whatever, it will come about. And I was bringing it about just by my desire. So now here I am still incarcerated, having the opportunity to do what I set forth just a year prior by putting it down and having massive intent while putting this together. And then boom, work release side. Now I get a job at this American Van Lines, and I was doing over the phone sales, and I crushed it. Within my first year, I made it in the top 5 of a room of 70 people. And the least tenured guy in that top 5 had 3 years, working in the moving industry. And I was able to do that because I was working from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays. And I did that and I didn't miss not one day. So I was crushing it. I was making more money than the people that were housing me because I had to bring my check and turn it in, and they give me a $50 stipend a week. And they're like, this is for the month. I was like, no, this is for the week. Like, what? And they were just blown away. So then I get released from this place and I leave with $10,000 cash that I was able to save throughout the work release because I was crushing it on the phone. Boom, 10,000 cash. And then while I was incarcerated, I was talking to older Jewish guys, and they told me about Boca. There's no crime. There's no panhandlers. There's no strip clubs. There's no car dealerships.
No casinos. There's nothing.
So like they painted this picture of this like utopia of like where to live, where it's great energy. And at this point, it was my 3rd time in prison. I decided to turn it into my school. So it was 4 years and 3 months.
4 years and 3 months, ladies and gentlemen. 4 years and 3 months. I'm not a mathematician, but that's well over 1,600 days of your life.
And by the way, most listeners on this Zoom call could have potentially ended up in prison. I would say maybe 60% because I was driving while having had a few drinks. I got into an accident and somebody died. So like the same thought that a lot of you have had about it's not going to happen to me or I'm fine. And my friend actually came out. He said, "You good to drive?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro, I'm straight." Got in the car, put on my seatbelt. I'm driving from Cutler Ridge to South Beach. I'm on the turnpike before it meets the 836, like 8th and 107th. You got the 2 hills. I'm on the top of the first hill. There's a sign obstructing the top of the second hill. By the time I get to the top of the second hill, boom, I rear-ended a vehicle going 83 miles per hour. I didn't even see it. I don't even know if they had their lights on or what. And right in that moment, life changed. That's it. Life changed.
And somebody in that vehicle passed away.
Somebody in the other vehicle passed away. There was 3 people, 2 in the front. They both had their seatbelt. The woman in the back didn't. And that situation was really bad. Like they shut down the whole turnpike like for that side. And I out of all the things that have happened in my life, if there's one thing would take back, it would definitely be that. You know, prayed with my grandma and prayed for her family, and you know, I put it in God's hands. And that's why I do the speaking events I do and trying to reach people. I speak with Mothers Against Drunk Driving and all of that other stuff, and started doing that. Was also the genesis of my speaking, because I had to do a victim impact panel course in Fort Lauderdale, and there was these women who lost their kids, either was hit by a drunk driver or they were the drunk driver. And I was so moved by them telling their story that I spoke to the host, Jose, and I said, look, if you ever need somebody from my side of the story, I'm happy. And he would call me. He would call me. He almost got me on Univision, but my Spanish is not as good as yours.
That's wild, man. So talk about, like, let's just recap here for a second so far. Like, this is a dude that, like a lot of us, right? We've made decisions that we very easily could have. I know I have personally, right? I'm man enough to admit that, you know, wrong place, wrong time, blink of an eye, life forever, no matter what, changed, you know. And I know Jake for a very long time, and he's an ultra successful investor today. And we're going to segue into the real estate side of it. But this is a dude that, for all intents and purposes, should not be here. Life kind of wrote him off in a lot of different ways, self-inflicted, a lot of it, right? But, you know, shouldn't be here. Certainly, you know, probably should be doing something else that is not at the tier that he's at. But a couple key takeaways for me, at least. You didn't fall into a victim mentality. Rule number one. Boom. Number two, you didn't waste your fucking time. In jail, out of jail, not a second. You learned a skill, which is sales, salesmanship, oratory, etc. Number four, put himself in an ultra uncomfortable situation. I would argue probably the most uncomfortable situation, going to prison with very, 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 very violent offenders, and then learning stuff in prison, finding Tony Robbins, call it the law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. It happened for a reason. Gets out, does Toastmasters, gets out, does a sales job, crushes it. Could have been mediocre at that, didn't. Succeeded very high at that. And then, you know, we'll transition now to where you're at. You got into real estate, what was it, 3+ years ago?
So April 7th, 2021, I get a phone call that shifted the trajectory of my life. It's been 3 years since I seen this person. They used to work for me on my call center sales floor, older guy, knew he fell on some bad luck back in the credit crisis, 2008, right? I knew, so now he was just doing sales at my call center back in 2015 so 2016 to 2018, he used to work for me. One of my best sales guys. Boom. 2018, don't see him again, 3 years. Jake, I've got this real estate deal. If you want to be in this deal, you got to raise $1.1 million. Never raised a penny in my life.
It's a hell of a call to get.
It's a hell of a call. But he says,
and listen, I always talk about this shit because this is super important. Let's not freaking blow past this. I literally just had this conversation with my attorney earlier today. Opportunity, a lot of you guys think that opportunity is going to come knocking, right? When, first of all, it doesn't come knocking. But a lot of you guys and girls think that opportunity is going to come knocking when you are at your best, when you're rock solid, when you're ready, when all the ducks and all that bullshit is in a row. That's bullshit. Opportunity comes when opportunity feels like coming. And you better be ready for when it does come. Because sometimes, we talked about the bus. The bus literally stops. Once it's out, it's out. And you said something to me the other day, which I love it. Just because you make it on the bus doesn't mean that you have the money to pay the fare. So be very mindful, because that is a huge gold nugget that he just gave there. Right? And a lot of people, most people, this is why a lot of people don't succeed. They get to a point, that same opportunity comes a knocking, and they're like, well, what do I know about raising money? Well, what am I supposed to do? Well, nobody would give me money. Then you start justifying, then you start making all this bullshit in your mind, and before you know it, the bus has left. Somebody else is on the bus that appreciated the bus, had the money to pay the fare, and figured it the fuck out. So this is what happens. So you got to raise $1.1 million.
So I trusted Neil.
I knew he was a developer in his background. He had built subdivision in Colorado pre-2008. You know, he had multiple projects going back then. You know, lost $30 million worth of real estate. And this was his return to the space because he was just waiting for the right time. Now, we never had a friend relationship. He just used to work for me. He was a great salesperson. That was it. And what Willie just said is very important because luck is when preparation meets opportunity. It wasn't just I got a phone call because Neil thought I was a nice guy.
No.
It was a phone call because Neil, when he met me and he saw me running the call center, he told me, these are words out of his mouth. I didn't know what we were going to do together, Jake, but I knew we were going to do something. This was his exact words. And I was the first and only call he made for that deal.
Sometimes that's all you need, baby.
Now, my mindset in the moment is I trust Neil, but I need to verify because I'm not gonna go this route unless I know for 100% that this is a good deal. So he had locked up 195 acres with $20,000. It's $1,950,000 is this 195 acres. And he had locked it up with $20,000 earnest money. So now we've got the equitable right to purchase this property with a clause in the contract that saved us on the back end, that gave us an extension every time we needed it, provided we would pay $5,000 for another week extension.
What a stud.
Beast.
For all you newer people out there, or maybe you're already transacting, the devil is in the details. And in this example, the better you structure your contract on the front end, you might think you not need it and this and that, but I can't tell you how many freaking situations I've been in where I'm like, oh shit. And I wish I had that clause, or I wish I had that verbiage. And if you have it, it literally could save a deal like that.
Yeah.
It's to make or break.
Yeah, saved ours for sure. Because we had one of the last potential investors. We met her in Fort Lauderdale. She talked up a great game. She wanted $800,000 of the deal, you know, and she was also like in the developing space. And Neil took a liking to her. And she kept stringing us along because she was pulling her money out of a brokerage account and they were jacking her around. And this was the story. Unbeknownst to me or Neil, she went around us to speak to the realtor and said, these guys are not going to close.
Oh,
These guys are not going to close. I need you. I need to be the first phone call.
oh.
And that conversation was had behind our back without us knowing. And on the front end, I'm like, Neil, he's like, this is for Shelly. I said, no, this money has no face right now. And if we don't have this money to the title company, not you, not me, not Shelly, we don't have a deal. Now, mind you, before I was raising this money and putting these feelers out, because Shelly actually came through one of my channels, I found another developer who has nothing to this deal, nothing in this deal. And I got them on the phone with Neil and I heard them pitch and catch. And I realized how good a deal we had. And in the world I play in now, so 3 years later, it's find the deal, frame the deal, find the money. It's as simple as that. Neil is finding the deal. I frame it, put it in a nice deck, and then I go to town and I find the money. And I had to show this deal to over 100 people, by the way.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is why, number one, this is why I love Jake, because the dude doesn't take no for an answer and he just keeps it moving. So again, this is so many gold nuggets in what he's talking about. This dude's been to prison. He's been through the worst of the worst. Then he has to speak to 100 people. How many of you would actually speak to 2 people, let alone 100? I mean, I know because I've raised money too. It's hard. And people are shutting doors in your face and this and that. Bro, you feel defeated. And at some point, you're going to have that thought cross your mind where you're like, damn, this sucks. Is it really going to happen? But you got to push forward. So you did.
So Shelly's stringing us along, and then I raised another 300,000. So now we got 500,000 left. And Neil says, leave it for Shelly. And all the while, she even put us on a phone with a guy who said, no, we're working on it. The money, she should have it soon.
because she wanted the deal to fall out of contract to come and swoop it up on the back end. And I got to the point where I said, Neil, I don't care how much you like her. I'm going to go get the rest of this money. And I'm going to close this deal because without that money in escrow, we don't have a deal. And I did it. Okay. But it wasn't without having to put another $5,000 in for an extension because this lady was stringing us along. And without that extension, that clause in that contract to get us an extension, even the realtor kind of putting his chest out that, oh, you don't have the money, and Neil even having to threaten him to sue him because he's like, look, you're getting both sides of this deal. I will file with because you're supposed to tell there's something he's supposed to disclose in doing that. And
yeah, he's a cooperating sales broker. He has a fiduciary duty to do that.
Right. And Neil knew that he had him there.
Yeah, with DVPR and FREC, for sure.
If you don't know the game, you don't know what levers to pull, and that guy backed off. But still, we could have potentially
experience, ladies and gentlemen, experience,
exactly. And we finally got that deal across the line. But over 100 people. So now, don't get discouraged if somebody tells you no. In my world, the world I play in, the best answer is yes. The next best answer is no. That's it. I don't care. For me, you want to be in the deal? Fantastic. If you don't, no sweat. Maybe next time. But I'm going to tell you, should I give people some tips on things that I did or what?
Hit them. Exactly what you did. By the way, what? Let's give the people some stats. You said you were buying for what? 1.8?
1,950,000. Now, the contract, that the initial agreement that we received said we had about 50 acres of wetlands in that 195. Come to find out, it was 71 acres. Now, Neil already had an LOI from D.R. Horton to purchase every lot from us at $45,000 a lot. And at that point, we were going to bang out about 400 lots. So that was a big number.
Monster deal.
Exactly. Now, Neil was like, Jake, I kind of feel bad going back to the seller on this. I said, Neil, it's your responsibility because you agreed to one thing, it's something else. And he went back there, he got it knocked down 140,000. So now we're at 1,810,000.
So 1,810,000 for 190?
195 acres.
195 acres that you believed was 50 acres of wetland, but now it's 71.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you got a reduction of 140.
140 grand reduction.
So now you're at 1.81.
1,810,000.
Right.
I had to raise 1.1. Your listeners are probably saying, oh, but you're only raising 1.1. Again, if you know your stuff, we got a seller carry for 810,000.
People always think it's an easy. Oh man, it's super easy. No, it's not fucking easy. Okay, it's not easy. This is a lot easier said than done. You do have to kiss a lot of frogs to get to that kind of money, and you're asking people to put up real money. You're also doing something very high level and complex. It's one thing to raise money from one or two individuals. It's a whole nother thing when you're raising a bunch of money from a bunch of people to put them into one deal. That's like herding cats. And you got to make sure paperwork's in order. You got to make sure everything works. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of personalities, there's a lot of people involved, right? More people to a deal usually fucks up a deal. Time kills deals. More people kill deals too. So let's just be fair here. The complexity level just keeps raising up. You also have wetlands where, if you're not familiar, in Florida, that's a huge environmental issue. Now you're involving different agencies and different organizations. This complexity keeps rising up. So this is not face value like, oh, we locked this up for 1.810. Oh, we can wholesale it out for 3 million. Nice, great day. This is definitely not the case.
No.
So what ended up happening with the property? So you raised the money, 1.81 is where you're at.
1,810,000. So now we're on the third year, and we are getting a development loan from this bank. 1.2 million first. D.R. Horton is actually going to give us a second for 1.4 million. That's how much they believe in the deal. They've already put the HOA in their name. They're already like really gung-ho with this property. They really like the project. So I mean, and I think that maybe you should go into that as well for a builder of that size to agree to be a second mortgage.
That's huge. That's huge. I mean, it's virtually unheard of. It's virtually unheard of in this market, especially a DR Horton.
Yeah.
DR Horton is top 5 biggest builders in the country. They're right behind Lennar and Toll Brothers and all that. I mean, these are not, and they're not easy to deal with either. I've dealt with them in Port St. Lucie. They're not easy to deal with. They're very complicated. They're huge organizations. There's like 1 million people you got to freaking deal with, a lot of handlers, a lot of gatekeepers. And they're so big where they're like, hey, either it works like this or it doesn't work. So we don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care because they don't have to care. They got tens of thousands of properties in development at any given time. So let's take a step back. You have a deal, you get a reduction, you have wetlands, you have 195 acres, you've raised your money from several people. Now you've gotten a bank loan for 1.2. Now you've gotten DR Horton to hold a second for 1.4. So I'm assuming this thing's got to be worth north of $4 or $5 million at this point. Entitled.
Right. So with DR Horton assessing the value, their value as is 5.9 million.
There you go. So he's got a banger, ladies and gentlemen, is what that means. You guys have it for 1.8 and it's assessing or appraising, loosely at 5. So yeah, he's got a fucking phenomenal deal. You already completed this deal, but yeah.
Right. So we're in the development loan stage of it. We're rounding third base. Finally, there's a lot that goes into this. This is not an easy game or a game for the faint of hearted.
Where's this at in Panama City?
Crestview, Florida, which is
Florida,
an hour west of here. So, thankfully my business partner is an experienced developer. And this is one of those games where you just have to have thick skin and a very solutions oriented mindset, because stuff is going to come out of the woodworks no matter how clean a deal looks. Or
how long of a process from, just so that people understand, tenacity, perseverance, and what it actually takes to make it in real estate, especially at a very high level. Jake is not out here wholesaling houses, for a couple bucks, right? This is definitely not where you genuinely start, right? This is a higher complexity. This is just a different sector of real estate. This is higher up. But for sure, like from the moment you got that phone call from Neil that said, hey, you're in this deal if you can raise the 1.1, right? To the moment of where you're at right now with the deal. What is that, 3 years?
3 years, bro. And our timeline was 1.5 to the investors.
Wow.
And their 100 grand bottom 6% of the deal. So I mean, they're gonna see on their 100,000 about 300,000 returned on top of their 100 grand back. But I was out to lunch with Neil about 2 months ago, and a lot of my friends are in this deal. And I said, Neil, we've got to do something for Eagle View. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I mean, our timeline has been off. And he's like, well, what are you thinking? Well, 8% preferred return since day one. And I said, I think that would be good, because it was things that we couldn't control. Like there was things that come up that we didn't even we didn't really go back to the investors with it, because we're just going to fix it. We had to go back to like rezoning, because they wouldn't do quarter acre lots. Like we had to go do like half acre lots. So that cut down the lots. So then Neil had to go back to DR Horton and renegotiate 45,000, get them to agree to 72,500, a lot more than they've ever paid in that area, and got them to agree to it, ink it up. Then you go from an LOI to a ratified contract, but you got to make sure that contract goes all the way up the chain to like the big dog corporate. Because you can have your regional land acquisition manager just sign some little rinky-dink contract, and DR Horton knows all the ways to back out of those things.
Oh, so, dude, listen, guys, when you're dealing with players at that scale, dimension, whatever you want to call it, complexity, don't ever get excited. I've seen deals that I've had blow up in my face a couple of days before closing, and they get away scot-free because they're really good at what they do. I don't believe in any of these deals until the wire hits. It's almost like, even then I'm like, really, is it there? Like, let me check the bank account, because these deals, bro, they're at the size they're at for a reason. Okay, they're not playing around.
No, and they got cash money, bro. Like,
oh yeah, dude. These are publicly traded companies, people. These are publicly traded companies. These people are not messing around. These are multi-billion-dollar organizations, all right? They're certainly not your mom and pop investor that's like, oh, this looks like a good deal. No, these people have it down to a science. They're not playing around. On the contrary, if you don't know what you're doing, I think you can vouch for this, Jake. They'll take you to school and they'll take you around.
Yeah, they'll mop the floor with you. I mean, Warren Buffett put $800 million into D.R. Horton last year, right? It's just an animal of a company. They do good business. They love what they do. They just come in, they build. They want pad-ready lots. The arbitrage is here for those who are going to go out there and get the entitlements. And Neil's a developer, and they want him to be the developer on it because like they're building like gangbusters here in Florida, especially in this area. So they don't even have enough manpower for certain parts of these stages. They just want to come in here and just build houses and sell them.
Well, yeah, listen, that's what they are. They're builders. They're not finders of deals. They're not acquisition guys. They don't want to do that. That's not their business. They know their lane. Their lane is you bring me an entitled lot, I'll put a fucking house there or whatever it is in 6 months. Exactly. End of story. And I can do that 100 times at the same freaking time. I have all the systems and which is really difficult to do. But all this stuff that Jake's talking about, going out, speaking to the seller, I assume this was an off-market deal or was it on-market?
Well, actually, before it even hit the market, Neil got a call from the realtor that was representing the seller.
There you go. So for anybody watching who's newer or who doesn't really understand, because we're talking about a lot of high-level stuff, what is something that someone can do to start sourcing these kinds of deals?
You have to develop a relationship with people that are, and this is not just your average everyday realtor. Like these guys have their hands in all of some of the best properties that have to do with raw land. So it's something that's, because you could just say realtor, but what are they specifying? Like what's their specialty? And this guy would, anything raw land, Neil would get it. And this thing wasn't under contract for more than 3 days. And Neil drove all the way up here from Hollywood, an 8-hour drive, and put it under contract Easter week. Because once he saw the deal, he pounced on it. He knew what he had. So it's having a good understanding of what your buy box is. And if anything lands in that buy box, you better have a plan to execute.
So I'm hearing a couple of things. Educate yourself. Build deep relationships with brokers, realtors, especially in this, because this is a niche. Land, large tracts of land, this is a niche. This is not your everyday fix and flipper, Pepito down the street that's just buying another house in the hood to renovate, okay? These are professionals. This is not a realtor that just finished real estate school last week. This is a professional that's made probably decades-long relationships with sellers, farmed areas. They understand it. So that's number one. So deepen relationships. Marketing definitely comes into play. Knowing your numbers, underwriting, making sure you know what the hell you're looking at, understanding, it's 195 acres, but 71 of them are wetlands. Well, what the hell's a wetland? What do you do with a wetland? How can we mitigate it? What types of processes do you have to go through? Is the juice worth the squeeze, right? And then, of course, your network, understanding the resources that you're going to need. Because where you raise this money, talk a little bit about that. It was really through Platinum partnership with Tony Robbins, right?
Not all of it. Maybe 30% came from that community. Maybe 30% came from that community.
And that community is a mastermind that Tony Robbins runs, basically, Platinum Partners. It's a lot of high-level people with money.
When I joined, it was a $75,000 annual membership.
I love it.
And then that didn't include the $10,000 you got to pay for the 3 exclusive trips. So
it's 105 G's.
Walking in the door, that doesn't include flights and hotels for all the other ones. So, I mean, all in, you're looking at probably 130,000, everything included.
Yeah. So again, another nugget here, because this will be a clip out of this podcast for sure. Another nugget here is really how Jake has invested 6 figures every year for years on end before that relationship paid off. What was it? You told me off camera it was 6 years almost.
So yeah, 6 years, that I joined the community, because some people join the community and expect to get an ROI immediately. I didn't, nor was I really looking for anything like that, but I knew that if I got a deal or something came across my path that made enough sense to present to that community, I would.
That's incredible, man. So you guys are developing right now. I've seen, if you don't follow Jake, Jake is on Instagram. It's Jake Cortez. Is that right?
Yep.
So Jake Cortez with a Z, like the discoverer of many, many lands in the Western Hemisphere, the Spaniard. But Jake, I've seen all the videos and like the pictures and the footage and the content that he pulls out, which I hope you do more of it, like we spoke about the other day, and focus around this, because what you're doing is really, really fucking high level. He's doing this in Florida by the Panhandle, on the West Coast. Let's call it Southern Georgia or Alabama for that regard, because it's the redneck Riviera, baby. That's where he's at. So you got a Cuban living in the redneck Riviera, and he's banging out. I mean, what is this deal going to be worth when all is said and done?
$14 million to DR Horton. About $6 million is going to be for development. So let's say
20.
Well, no, 6 million out of the 14 is going to go towards development, getting it to pad ready. So you're looking at 8 million profit to the investors. So between us and the investors, they're going to get their percentage. We're going to get our percentage, and everybody's going to be happy. And then there was deal number 2, which was 185 acres, 600 pad mobile home park. And just to kind of give you a perspective of who Neil, my business partner, is, he's like, Jake, I found this deal and I also found the investor, but I'm going to keep you in this deal because had you not got us through the first one, we wouldn't have the second one. And
Wow.
he kept me in the deal for the same percentage. Right?
That's incredible, dude.
Right. You know, he turned 70 this month on the 19th, and it's just a different caliber of interaction. We can do deals on handshakes, you know, and the honor and the trust is there. Like in terms of business, we've developed a level of trust that if I tell him something, it's getting done. If he tells me something, I know it's done. Right.
It's incredible.
We'll still draw up contracts, but that's a formality because we understand how each other works. And come later on, he ended up meeting me on that one because he had a falling out with that investor, and I had to find the investor. Turns out my friend Rick wanted the deal. He just took it down for himself. He's never been involved with mobile home parks. And I was in the car with him one day and I was like, look, I'm tasked with finding the investor on this deal and I'm going to find them. Why don't you just get the $150,000 commission we're going to pay out for somebody bringing the investor? Why don't you just collect the commission on that? Because I know with your contact list, you'll call 5 people, 3 will be interested, 1 will move on the deal, and you can just collect this commission. Now, Rick's not a person to pitch anything he doesn't understand. So the moment he started doing his research and he understood the deal, he didn't want to pitch it. He wanted to keep it for himself.
Good for him. Good for him.
So he just put up the 1.5, which turned out to be 1.8. He just put it up and he has that deal. He found a partner. So he basically, with the partner and how he set it up, you know, he got his money back, but now he's got a partner. He owns 50% of the deal. Smart guy. And then 3 and 4 was, we found 640 acres here in Panama City Beach, 6 minutes from an international airport, 15 minutes from the ocean, for $1.8 million.
1.8 million for 685?
640 acres.
640 acres.
$1,856,000.
What's that one going to be worth? That's your big boy deal, no?
So 600 is one of 2 parcels. We combine them. We have a total of 1,500. So 640 acres with the 900 pads that we can put on there. 900. If we were to sell it right now at face value, like what it would go for on the market, that'd be $18 million right there.
$18 million. So you turn $1 million and change into 18 million without doing anything.
Right now, if we wanted to just flip it on the open market, quick sale, $18 million.
Unbelievable. Good for you.
We named one of our companies Financed by God because we were like, how are we finding these deals? And he's like, Jake, I don't know, it's God. But he had watched that deal for 2 years. He had watched that deal for 2 years, 2 potential buyers that backed out. He said, what's wrong with this property? What's wrong with it? He started doing some investigating, some digging. He was already up here for the other Crestview deal, just speaking to people. Come to find out, the two people that had contracts on it prior that backed out were looking to build single family homes. And it had 300 acres of wetlands, 300 acres of wetlands. So in order for them to build single family homes, they had to backfill the property. At that point, cost became prohibitive and they backed out. And it went from 2.3 million to 1,856,000. And Neil just swooped in and put it under contract.
See, people, again, talk about this all the time in my videos. Right butt in the right seat. Also, knowing what the hell you're doing, right? To a single family builder, and I've seen this happen in my career many a times, where I've even, earlier on in my career, I've wholesaled properties to people where I've looked and I'm like, what's this guy gonna do with this? Next time I drive by it, there's a 10-plex there, and I'm like, oh shit, he knew something I didn't know. She knew something I didn't know. And that comes through experience, that comes through tenure, but that also comes through a very classic and simple thing that anyone can do is asking. It's asking. It's asking. And it's asking, you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And if you just scroll on by, most people do. And there's a lot of people. I had a buddy in South Florida, right here, Flagler Village, Fort Lauderdale. He bought a church. He ended up buying the lots next to it. They're developing 330 units because he knew how to do it. Wow. He could have turned around and sold it and made $20 million on a profit. He's going to keep it. It's going to cash flow him $100K a month for the rest of his life. And he backfilled the developers. He backfilled those deals. So right now, you got a bunch of deals working. You're very bullish on the mobile homes, right? Clearly, it's low-income housing at its finest, right? It's a huge necessity, especially in those areas. Bro, I'm super like proud of you. I'm super like ecstatic, bro. Like this is a dude that 3+ years ago, which is not a long time, by the way, 3 years ago, had no real estate experience, with all due respect. Now he's raised money. He's dealt with wetlands. He's dealt with municipalities. He's dealt with cities. He's renegotiated contracts. He dealt with one of the largest builders in America. He's pad ready on some of these projects. He's raised a shit ton of money with really no prior experience to professionally raising money and dealing with very high-powered people, very fast-moving things on the fly. He's also doing some of the sales. I mean, I see him on the phone sometimes. He's closing people for mobile homes and stuff and running, you know, the actual sales department. So, dude, there's no doubt in my mind that you deserve every penny that's coming your way because you've put in a lot of the time, and you're like an exact representation of, dude, I'm 10+ years later an overnight success. I've put in all this time, but the universe pays off in spades. And you've done that. You've done that at an extremely high level.
Well, the one thing that I want your listeners to tune into is you can't win the game of investing if you've never developed an investment thesis. A lot of people want to be an entrepreneur because it's sexy. It's perceived to be sexy. Yeah. You want freedom, but then you're married to your business for the first 2 years. If nobody shows up to work, who's on those phones closing those calls?
You are.
You are.
You are.
So a lot of people have this glamorous view of being an entrepreneur, but there's a big distinction between being an entrepreneur operator and an entrepreneur owner. And the transition is, what are the key metrics that I have to gauge weekly? What
APIs?
Yeah, right. APIs. How can I get and keep quality people to manage the efficient systems that I've built, right? And how do I quantify their work by the mathematics so I don't have to be over their shoulder? I can look at the data, and the data is going to give me the answers. Because in 2016, when we met, like around that time, I was a hardcore operator. I was on the phone when my guys were in closing. I was TOing deals. I was hopped up on Adderall and double espressos like you wouldn't believe. I'm 12 hours in. I did not have an office phone in my home, and I'm laying in bed and I'm hearing office phones, bro. And I knew, bro, to this day, you will never hear my phone ring. Never. Because I don't have the ringer on. Like I don't. Like it'll vibrate. I know it's ringing, but you'll never hear my phone ring. bro, it was 10 phones going all the time. Bop, 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 bop. Two
Yeah.
companies under one roof. But what I realized when I joined Platinum Partnership, in life, proximity is power. If you're scared to spend on yourself, don't ask somebody to bet on you. If you're
Hey,
not gonna put 75 G's on yourself, 100 G's on yourself, 200 grand on your self-development, why do I want to bet on you?
100%.
You
And
don't bet on you. Why would I want to bet on you?
the best ROI that I've ever seen in my entire career, people ask me, what's my best deal? What's the sickest deal? And I'm like, you're looking at it. You're looking at it. It's standing right in front of you. It's in this camera right now. That's, yes, of course, I've done 500 plus deals. I can pick out one that financially was like, wow, that's a banger. You're looking at it and you're looking at it. That's the best one. I still, till this day, all the masterminds I'm in, with travel, everything, all the trips, the hotels, and then the costs and the fees and everything, it's over 200 G's a year. 200 G's a year in my continued education, by the way. And I think it's hilarious how, this is a really good important part. I think it's hilarious how a lot of entrepreneurs that I've been around, right? Contemporaries, like when I started in South Florida and, you rise up and, everybody has a different path kind of thing. I think it's hilarious how certain guys and girls get to a certain point in their career and you watch them go, boom, and this turns into this very quickly. There's no more of this. There's just this. They hit a certain limit and then they go, well, this seems very comfortable. Like Ed Milet talks about the thermostat. Your thermostat, where is it set at, right? And the thermostat won't go above or below. It'll stay right there until you change the thermostat. So for me, I really never felt that I've arrived, and I continue to go to these rooms, and every single time I'm in one of these rooms, whether it be the mastermind I'm a part of for the education business, or the mastermind I'm a part of for real estate, or the mastermind that I'm a part of for mindset and all that, I always pick out one or two nuggets that go and they skyrocket me somewhere else. And I'm like, dude, I'm supposed to be 7+ years in the game and I'm still learning. And it's funny because the people that I see plateau never fails. They don't plateau when they're in masterminds and investing in their self-education. They plateau because they feel like they have that behavior or that mentality of I've made it. And they feel like there's nothing more for me to learn. And that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Even Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett still educate themselves. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. So who the fuck are you to tell me that I got it. No, bullshit. Bullshit. I'm sure you're still learning stuff on these deals that you're like, bro, I didn't see that coming.
I will say, out of all the masterminds, especially Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership, I got to a point where, all right, I came, I saw, I got what I needed. It's time to execute. While people are still out going to seminars and stuff like that, and you get into the habit of making new connections and you're not actually executing on what you've actually learned, because without execution, none of this stuff matters. And I'm not scared to do the work. That's the key. If you were to boil everything down, the most valuable things that you could put to work are so simple: consistency, having an idea of what's going to take you to the promised land. Like, you don't have to have it concrete. You just have to have a map, because things can change. You might change your direction, but you know where you're going, right? So real estate wasn't in the picture like this, but I knew what I wanted. I wanted my assets to fund my liabilities with a surplus of cash on a monthly basis that I can turn around and reinvest the difference. Because if I'm good at communication and sales with the right deal, because if I can find the deal, I create the terms. What gives a salesperson 10 times more power? Give me the deal. I control the terms. What's easier to find, the deal or the money?
The money.
The money.
The money.
The money. I'm doing what that guy, and sitting in his posh life and all that. I'm doing the grunt work. I'm doing the work, and they see on my Instagram the work I'm doing. I post daily, and I'm in there closing sales. I don't have to. That wasn't a part of my deal. I just raised the money. I'm getting my percentage either way. But guess what? If your money's in my deal, you better believe that Jake's going to make it come through to fruition if I'm in that deal with you. Plus, this deal is bigger than my life. Like this deal is bigger than like 3,500 pads. This is going to feed not just me, my kids, their kids, their kids. This is something that's put into trust and passed down. This is
a
legacy.
This is a legacy play. 100%.
We're building a city, 3,500 people.
That's huge. No, it's more than 3,500 people because with families, it's probably 6,000, 7,000 people.
10 to 12-year project. I'm getting this plane off the runway, and then I can shift some of my focus. But right now, sales and marketing is my game. So I'm offering my expertise because we want to stay as lean as possible, put that in the company, get it up. You know, I've spent $2,000, generated close to 200 leads. And we're close. We probably got 3 for sure, and a total of 7 in the pipeline in terms of loan applications and stuff like that to sell manufactured homes.
I love it, man. The wise man once told me a long time ago, what got you out of Rome won't necessarily get you into the promised land. So you better remember that. And that's what I've always taken away from you know, hanging out with you and learning from you and being around you. And, you know, hopefully I've shared some stuff that was of value to you too over the years.
Yeah, bro, you're an inspiration to me. You are.
I appreciate that, man.
You are. You got hunger, you got drive, you got tenacity, and you got get the fuck out of my way or get on the train. You know, that's, you know, you got to be like, look, this country wasn't built by pansies.
No.
Like, we got real soft. We got a lot of people that are like too scared to say a certain thing is going to hurt people's feelings. But if it's the truth, sometimes the truth hurts. And this country wasn't built by softies, man. This country was built by solid people with great intentions. We are the last beaming flame of freedom. We are the last country in the world. Like, we are the only country in the world with free speech in our Constitution.
That's right.
And
that's why it's right here, baby. It's always right there.
And look, I have great pride for this country. I will, you know, don that flag. Like, this country has given me the opportunity. If we were born in Cuba, Willie, what would we be doing? Cutting sugar cane for 85 cents a day?
Dick. We'd be smuggling little tobacco cigars out of Cohiba factory and trying to sell them to Americans.
Dreaming about taking that 90-mile trip to Key West, right? First, you got to come to the promised land to create your dreams. Now, guess what? You were born here. Make use of it. I hit the lottery being born in this country, and that's how I live my life. That's why I'm ahead of everybody. Ahead of a lot of people that are 42 years old. The thing is, there's a difference between perception and perspective. Perception is what your life experience, your social norms, the stigmas, the stereotypes, all the stuff that you believe to be true and is in fact your reality. Mine is a global perspective because there's 8 billion people on this planet. I was being escorted into a confinement cell in my second bid, on my third bid, and I didn't do anything. They just came and got my stuff. They took me to the captain and said, we're putting you in confinement. I said, for what? He said, we don't have to tell you. I said, I'm obviously being escorted there for some reason. You got to give me the reason. He said, we don't have to tell you. Take him away. So now they're escorting me into this confinement cell. And I say to myself, because I already screwed up the last 2 times. I ended up doing all of my time instead of getting out on good behavior. You know, the first time I didn't care. The second time I really tried, but I screwed it up. The third time I'm like, I really want to get home early, right? Like, I want to do right by my family. And here I am being escorted into this cell. And Tony Robbins talks about a primary question. And my primary question at this age, I'm probably about 25, 26 years old, was, how can I find meaning in this? This is a question that is like a servile missile. Your RAS, which is your reticular activating system, is going to be honed in on what is going to provide you something that is relative to what your thought process is. And as I'm being escorted into this room, I'm saying, how can I find meaning in this? Because I didn't really do what they think I did. I don't even know what they think I did. But now I've got to put my hands through the flap. They got to take the handcuffs. And I'm sitting in the cell all by myself. Nothing, just a mat, the sink and the toilet. And I said, boom. How many people are on the planet right now? 7 billion people on the planet. Okay, let's grossly overestimate and say there's 2 billion people that are afforded the luxuries we're afforded here in the United States. We got 300 million, but let's say 2 billion people. And that's a gross overestimation, but let's use that number, 2 billion people. That's 5 billion people. Clean water, food, have to worry about a bomb falling through your roof. So let's say 5 billion people. Not all 5 billion people would trade spots with me, but I am 100% certain that 2.5 billion people would want the 3 room service trays that are going to be delivered to that flap, this roof over their head, this clean bed to sleep in, the AC that's blowing. So in a moment of my greatest, one of the could have been in the top 5 traumatic experiences, in that moment, I was able to find gratitude for what I did have, not from what they were taking from me, but from what I did have that other people didn't. And it was a global perspective, taking me out of my perception, that allowed me the ability to transcend just that a moment and still embrace it with a sense of gratitude. And that shifted the trajectory of my life. Because there's always something for you to be grateful for.
Of course.
You're already in the top 1% of the world.
And you can't be angry with gratitude. They don't live in the same place. That's why I always start my morning off, as cliche as it might sound to a lot of people, I always start my morning off with affirmations and gratitude. The first thing I say when I get out of bed is I'm grateful and I'm thankful for today. I don't know what the fuck is going to happen today. The world might end, but I'm grateful and I'm thankful that I woke up and I get to get on my knees and I get to say thank you and I keep it moving. And I have the intention of going out there. I love America, bro. America is the greatest fucking country in the world. And we talked about this off camera. We have a serious fucking problem where a lot of people are bitching, moaning, crying, complaining about what they don't have. But I don't see a lot of action takers. I don't see a lot of doing. Because I'll tell you what, one of my mentors, Mark Evans, always says, winners win with winners. That's a fact. If you put a bunch of winners in a room, they're not going to be complaining. They're not going to be talking about what they don't have. And they're not going to be talking about lack or scarcity. They're going to figure out how the fuck to win. And if you stripped all my shit away, which has already happened to me in my career, I found a way to get it back better, faster, cleaner, and nicer than the first time.
And wiser.
And wiser. That's right. And how to keep it on the second time. So that's powerful, man. That's powerful. I mean, we definitely got to do a follow-up podcast. I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate it more than you know. Really.
Love you, man. You're my brother.
Likewise, bro. The same thing to you, man. For real.
Yeah.
Guys, please like, follow, share, comment. If this was impactful for you at all, please share it. Tag Jake and I. We would appreciate it. We do this. We're not getting paid to do this. We do this just to, pay it forward. Hit Jake in his way, me in my way. My goal is to always bring very interesting, cool people onto this show. Could be real estate. We've had Pace Morby here. We've had Jake. We've had a bunch of different people that, come from all different walks of life, man. But they all have one thing in common. They strive to be a better version of themselves today than they were yesterday. Tomorrow's going to be the same thing. And they're changing the world in their own right. And every single one of them has been through a massive amount of adversity. That is the one common denominator that I always find in the person that sits on the other end of this camera, 100%. And through that adversity, what's come out is the individual that is here today and doing the things that they're doing, myself included. Right. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Jake. I appreciate you very much. This was going to be a great one, man.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And the last thing that I'll leave with people is, if you can just shift out of your individual perception and kind of look at it from a global perspective, you are a spirit that has a human interface that is relating to the world based off what you believe to be true. It's always good to push the bounds of what you understand. And this is why mastermind coaches, mentors like Willie can help guide you to a higher realization. And you're not just paying for knowledge, you're paying to condense time. Because why go through it yourself when you can pay somebody like Willie who's been through it, lost it all, and built it back so you don't have to lose it all. So mentorship, there's a big difference between a coach and a mentor, and I'll leave it here. Coach, Michael Jordan's coach couldn't dunk from the free throw line, but he could tell him one little 2 millimeter shift that he could with his pivot that would maybe give him a little more speed or agility. Now, mentorship has been where you want to go, and they have the results that you seek. So
there's times for coaches and there's times for mentors. And it's up to you to determine what you need and what value you could bring to the mentor. So it's something that they want to take on in terms of mentoring.
I love that, bro. And the most important thing that I always tell people, bro, just fucking get started. I don't care what it is. Pick up this thing. Do whatever it is that you need to make that first call, that first intro, that first whatever. But get fucking started. You making excuses and justifying the 72,000 different ways that it could go wrong is not going to get you anywhere but more anxiety and another day that you've done shit with your life. So just get fucking started. And I promise you, it's going to be a lot harder than what you think, but it's going to be a lot better than what you think too on the other side. Exactly. So appreciate you, Jake. Really mean it, man.
Much love, man.
Love you, buddy.